there every Sunday morning, and I just get the 2.0.
Welcome back. We're going to start with town property. Steve Neidorf is going to come up. Morning, Steve.
Good morning.
Want to just give us some highlights here, please?
All right. Most of my budget was estimated by the finance department, but salaries are per GEA contract, so that'll change with the new contract. Part-time salaries will also be the same. Overtime, 3,000. It's the number I always use. Travel expense, 200, same as usual. Utilities will decrease about $1,000 down to $58,761.
Why is that? Just actual usage?
Town Hall South, I've converted to gas, so gas should be a little cheaper than the oil. Naturally.
Okay. Yeah,
It's
it
based
seems like
on
it should be more than $1,000 savings there, but
Town Hall is pretty efficient. It doesn't
Okay.
use a ton of
okay,
fuel.
but there's some savings from a
Yes.
conversion to gas.
Cell phones remain the same. Street lighting, about the same, down a little bit. These are all rates, again, by finance. Fire hydrant rental,
Everybody's favorite.
yes, that went up. Cemetery maintenance remains the same. Uniform clothing and allowances per contract. Repairs and maintenance went up a little. We have to get certified on our lift machine. You have to do it every 3 years, so this is the year that we need to be recertified. So that's the cost difference there.
Lift machine?
We have a man lift to go up and down to get change lights and
So like the
parking
scissor
lights.
lift that goes up. And that reaches the ceiling of the big space in the community center?
No, it does not.
Oh,
It doesn't go quite that high.
okay. So how do you do the ceiling actually up there?
We would have to get it. We've looked into getting renting a machine to get in there to get up way in the top. Ours does most of it,
Okay.
all but the last about 5 feet.
Okay.
Maintenance supplies have stayed the same. Seasonal decorations also the same. Vehicle maintenance is also staying at 6,000. We added a new vehicle, so I didn't see any maintenance costs with that. That's it.
Questions? When you say added a new vehicle, so you're up one net vehicle?
Yes, we are. We had invested, we weren't sure if we were going to get it, so we had invested some money into our old van. At this point, it's running great. I don't see the point in just getting rid of it. So now we have a vehicle for every man. Once it's shot, I will get rid of it, without replacing
Without
it.
replacing it.
Right.
Just curious, how old is the van?
That's got it on the last sheet. I think that's a 99.
A few more miles out of it.
Yes.
You got it.
On the utility sheet, next to electricity, there's a question mark, THS question mark.
Yes.
I guess Town Hall.
Town Hall South, correct.
Can you explain the question
That
mark?
so far has not been on the bill that I pay. So that I believe is going to end up going on.
That's part of the agreement with
The agreement with
Savings
Gilbert
Bank.
Savings Bank.
Okay.
That's right.
I see.
So I have no cost estimate to go with that.
Great. Good. Other questions? Steve and I had a meeting the other day. You want to talk about some of the pressures that you have relative to space issues? I think that folks are going to need to be
A lot of what's going on is storage for all the town departments. The building department is having a lot of their files scanned. At some point, those files are going to come back. They need to be stored somewhere, as well as whatever other departments for long-term storage. We're running out of space down in the basement of the town hall. So at some point, we need to come up with a long-term, secure storage area that's heated to maintain all these files long-term.
Long-term, how long is long-term?
However long these departments need to hold on to files.
I mean,
think
there's a retention schedule put out by the state library, yes.
So
So 7 years?
Some are 7 years, some payroll items are forever. Ranges from 3 years to 30 years, depending on what the documents are.
And that's even for items that have been scanned? Doesn't scanning satisfy that requirement?
Not at this point, no.
That might change though.
Correct.
Yeah,
That-
it doesn't make any
duplicitous.
sense.
At the
Doesn't
moment,
make
Doesn't
sense.
make any
At
sense.
the moment, they're just talking
Yeah.
paper documents. So, years ago, when we put things on the computer and had a floppy disk, they were actually had the foresight to think, hey, we may not be able to read that someday. So I think that's why, the technology is changing, and the fear is, 30 years from now, if I need to go back to that payroll record, will I be able to extract it? I don't work for them. I'm just giving my.
Is microfiche an option?
Pardon?
Is microfiche an option for printed material?
We do a lot of microfiche, yes,
There's a
especially
cost,
in the
but
town
a
clerk's
lot less
office.
storage.
Mhm.
Okay, so part of our discussion was going to try to size or scale this thing, and then take a look at potential other opportunities within town buildings to use for storage. And Steve and I will be going through an exercise, probably with Jim and several of the other department heads, looking to see where we can find available space. One of the things we were talking about was the potential use of the old science wing as an opportunity. I know the Board of Education does not have ownership of that facility and will not for some time, but would it make sense to carve out a space up in that area? But to be determined.
Steve, I have a question. Under the repairs and maintenance, what buildings fall under those various expenses? Or is it just this building?
Town Hall South, Social Services, Youth and Family Services, Food Bank, primarily. A lot of the other buildings have their own
So this is
maintenance.
5 buildings for $22,600. Is that enough?
In my opinion, no. But that's what it's been since I've been here, and that's what they've always given me.
But realistically, repairs and maintenance.
It would help, yes. I could do more maintenance and prolong things getting to a point where they have to be
I'm sorry.
major capital projects.
What would be the number that would make sense to you?
So Matt and I were talking yesterday, and even $5,000 or $10,000 more a year, just so I could replace doors or windows or whatever, instead of waiting for it to be a larger number, to where all the doors are shot or all the windows are shot, making a big capital project out of it.
So the 22.6 has been static for
Since I've been here, yes, 10 years.
One of the things we talked about was potentially establishing a capital fund for town properties to draw down on. Again, I'm not sure how many ways we can split up that surplus that we had from 2016, 2017, but as there aren't specific plans for the use of that at this point, the thought was potentially to set up a special services fund for town properties improvements over time, so that we don't have to go to the voters. It's already surplus.
Yeah.
So just thought for
Is this kind
consideration.
of, we have that nice philosophy of trying to keep everything at a certain standard so we're not hit with a
Right.
big thing in 10 years. So I know this is just a small budget item, but again, maybe a little more each year would be better than just suddenly being slammed with a $10,000 expense.
Exactly.
It has come up a little bit over the last couple of years, so
Right.
the budget.
It has?
Right. Well, it's, well, you've got a large encumbrance in that account right now. Do you know what that's for? About a $14,000 encumbrance?
Well, it's because I'm only allotted that amount of money. I don't know whether it's got to go towards plumbing or everything, so everything's always
Okay.
exaggerated,
Right.
just in case,
All right.
even though I don't spend it.
Okay. Well, we can talk further about specific projects in mind and
Okay.
then maybe a revision to this. Right.
Aren't some of these projects just ending up in general fund capital anyway to to go for a pay-as-you-go kind of strategy?
Traditionally not. These are small maintenance items that typically don't rise to the level of identifying as capital expenditures. It could be replacing a couple of doors. It could be.
Not a Public Works because of the salt. A lot of their exterior doors are rotting out. And it'd be easier if I had the money to replace 2 a year instead of making a big project out of it.
Right, I see.
Just to keep things moving in the right direction instead of waiting.
Smaller
to get all
repair
that-
as opposed to
right.
complete
Doing a major
replacement.
project.
Right, and my thought was that we don't have to put a lot of money away, but if we put up a special fund and we put 50,000 in that, theoretically he's talking $5,000 a year. That gets us 10 years worth of those kind of projects. And my intent would be, if we continue to have surpluses, continue to grow funds like that, so that we don't have to keep going to the taxpayers for it.
And it's things like carpeting. I mean,
Oh, don't even talk about carpeting. That was it.
Yeah.
That's not going to be 5 or 10.
Yeah.
But again, after you're done, and
Right.
if you continue to maintain it, and
Right.
it's the life expectancy, and you have the money available, you can replace something like or paint a
Correct.
room.
Right. It would give me a lot more flexibility, and we can do more in-house with my guys.
Got the staff. All right, any other questions?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I jumped ahead to engineering. Never mind. Thanks.
Well, he can answer for Jim.
Yeah, go ahead.
See how that works.
I'll give you a preview.
There you go. Anything else? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right. Engineering, Public Works. Mr. Mitchell's AOL? No, AOL. What is it? AWOL. AWOL.
WOL.
AWOL.
There's a familiar face.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Either the room's gotten smaller.
Good morning, Commissioner Mitchell.
Good morning.
And
How are you?
Commissioner Federici.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, everybody.
So, good morning.
There's no rule about family members sitting at the same table.
No,
Uh,
I'm going to work that into the charter.
Yeah.
Nepotism is not an issue.
I can tell you, your father is proud to see you sitting in that chair.
That's very good. All right. So, along with us is Jim Portley, directly behind me, Tom Fillion, and some members of the Public Works Commission. So, I thank you for allowing us the time to present our 2018-19 budget. I'm really happy to say that the recent snowstorm hasn't affected the town, although other towns are experiencing a little bit more snow than we are. So, good thing, because we've had 7 storms this season, so it's been a little grueling for the Public Works Department. So I want to thank you for all seeing our review. I'll try to catch up on time. Everything that we have here has been reviewed by the Public Works Commission, and we'd like to review for anybody that's new to the Board of Selectmen group and for the public a little bit about the Public Works Department. I'll be brief. So overall, it's a diversified department focusing on public safety, general maintenance of our roads and our infrastructure, and we maintain most of town's equipment from lawnmowers to trucks. So it's very diversified. We do it differently than other towns in the sense is that we maintain our own equipment. We don't outsource it. That goes along with areas like plowing, sanding, salting, sweeping. We're also the first responders because if you don't have public works trucks out, fire and police can't get to their destinations. So one of the things that's kind of different about the town of Guilford versus other towns, it is a vast town. There's 50 square miles versus adjacent towns of Madison, which is 36 square miles, and Brantford, which is 28. So we have a large geography. 12 miles long by 5 miles wide, 185 miles of roadway. That's huge. Within that, we also have over 130 pieces of town equipment that we maintain regularly, and we have 14 plow routes. So We do a pretty good job with a small department, and we do it differently than other towns in the state of Connecticut because we all do it internally. So we have a very trained staff. They work our roads. If you hear them at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, they're there for us. The town department also in equipment and support of other towns, departments include Park and Rec, Police, Board of Ed, Town Hall, Marina, Golf Course, Transfer Station, amongst others. We spread our resources throughout all town departments. We're not just seasonal. Throughout the year, we are diligent to make do everything from cleaning debris off the roads to removing anything that's been on the roads, to patching, making sure the roads are safe. We also do major road infrastructure and major road projects. In 2017, just alone, Podunk Road was reconstructed, Driftwood was milled and paved, Lover's Lane was redone, Great Hill repaired, landscape and drainage. We prepared roads scheduled for chip sealing and have done a phenomenal job shimming and getting roads ready for chip sealing. And that's been an initiative to maintain our roadways. Along with that, we did Falcon Road. If anybody's been down there, we did seawalls there to stop the erosion. So a lot of projects were done throughout 2017. 2018, our hit list includes Nut Plains Road reconstruction, Leeds Island Road, the tide gates there, Long Hill Road drainage, and continue up from Christopher Lane up to Route 80, Jacobs culvert replacement, and State Street sidewalks. These road projects, and I will give you an average, is a 30 to 40% increase in savings to the town versus outsourcing. So when we use our town department equipment and resources versus outsourcing it like other towns do, it is a cost savings. So our newest member of the Public Works Commission and does our finances, Rob Frederici. We're welcome to have him on board. He can go over all the operating.
All right, thank you, Dean. So we're just going to go through here item by item. Any questions? Shout them out. So we start right off the top with full-time salaries at $1,408,862. This year, included in this number, is 6 step increases. I should say step increases for 6 employees. These are merit-based earned increases, the justification for which has already been provided to the Board of Selectmen from the Director of Public Works. We brought some extra copies if anyone would like another copy of that. Questions? No? Then we have part-time seasonal salaries. That's right in line with what it's been the past several years. Boards and Commission Secretary, same deal there. Overtime, as Dean alluded to, we've had a lot of storms already this season, and we're only halfway through, so overtime is what it is, and that's the number 99,372. Expenses and travel, again, that's right in line with what it was last year. Utilities and fuel, both of these are determined by just the costs as they are, so those get plugged into the budget. Building maintenance, this is a number that is up a little bit. There's a couple we just wanted to point out. Some of the bigger items here on the list. There's the oil water separator, which is an environmental requirement, so that needs to make sure it gets maintained. There's a safety requirement with the sprinkler system in the cold bay storage. That's replacing a pipe at $2,500 per bay. And again, these are safety requirements. It's a whole big system that has to get operated on each time that gets maintained. And then there's a piece of deferred maintenance with the HVAC upgrade for the Public Works facility, which has been advised by Steve Nadorf to get upgraded this year. Any questions or anything?
Good so far?
Okay.
Joe?
I don't have the backup on the promotions.
It's got it here.
They can have
Copies.
Your step increases, not promotion. They're step increases.
Well, you said you had something for backup for the reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
this year,
coming up.
Okay, I don't need it to say.
Want it?
That's all right.
Can I throw a question at you, Dean, about the overtime?
yes, sir.
I see it's bumping up a little bit, and I'm curious what's driving it.
Preliminarily, because the season started off with a lot more snowfalls, we're also looking at that as, usually when the trend starts, continues through the whole year, unfortunately. Overtime is what it is. We have, we try to budget within. It could be lower by the end of the year. We don't know that. But unfortunately, with what we've been seeing lately is that we're required to do a little bit more and take a little bit more time to do it. Some of the overtime we've been experiencing the past month or so is because snowfalls hit on weekends.
And holidays, you were out on
And
Christmas
holidays.
Day.
Yes, Christmas Day we were out.
I remember the huge snowstorm and the Arctic weather to follow, so. So you're extrapolating some
Sorry.
overtime that you're seeing this year, thinking that you're going to see the same pattern
Probably
next year.
seeing the same thing.
And then, I'm sorry, there's kind of one follow-up question. I start to wonder when I see overtime be a pretty significant chunk of payroll, when it might make sense to actually add somebody and it becomes maybe more economical.
It's a very good point. We're trying to keep our staffing within our budget. If in the event that we see that, and for next year, I think it would be a great recommendation that you bring up. But at this point, we're just trying to work it through overtime, and that's been our directive.
Okay.
If I may, John,
Yes, sir.
this figure this year is a figure we had computed last year based on last year's experience. The $84,000 we carried in the budget was a reflection of the fact that we were asked to reduce the budget, and that's what the way we reduced our budget was to reduce that overtime item. We had 99,000 there last year. We reduced it down to 84 to save 15,000. Again, hoping against hope that we wouldn't need it, but
Right.
it's not really an increase. We base overtime historically on having 13 storms a year and so many hours per storm, and that's what it's predicated on.
Yep, all makes
It changes
sense.
from year to year.
Difficult to
It's
forecast.
impossible number to put on precisely, but, and this year's gonna be a tough one. If you've been watching the news, Hamden and Mount Wallingford, they're all out overtime, they're all out. And because of the cycles of storms that we've been experiencing.
Yeah,
So
that first
that's
storm
what
was
that-
like 2 days long.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
and that's why you see an increase now, really.
So not to beat a dead horse, but let's beat it anyway. Other departments have done it by 3-year averages. To do that here wouldn't make sense because it's weather related.
Yes.
So
It takes a
you
cycle.
You have a base, and you use that base, and you hope for the best.
Right, exactly.
That's the way it's, I recall it over the years. But so
Right.
it wouldn't make sense to average it out because it's just.
We tried doing that, and when we did that about 3 years ago, we had a 36-inch snowfall.
Yeah.
I don't know, and that really blew the budget out of the water. So,
I have two questions. One, are you fully staffed with healthy employees? And two, are we contracting any of the snow plowing out any longer? We used to. I don't know if we're still doing
in some
that.
cases, we continue to outsource. Our staffing varies again. In some cases, we've been short on staffing, and has affected the overtime as well, too. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that happens.
And the second part, we don't hire contractors.
We're not contracting out.
No, we are.
It's all
we do-
in-house?
We bring relief drivers in.
Yeah.
We have that, we have 2 or 3 relief drivers we bring. We do not hire outside staff.
So the relief drivers are driving Guilford equipment. They're not bringing their own equipment in.
That's correct. That's
When I say outsource, is that we have drivers that are capable or have a license to be able to use our equipment.
Yeah.
And they're on call, so to speak, when we need them,
Yeah.
which is a better way of doing it, more budget conscious.
All right, so next up we have equipment repair and maintenance, as laid out here, coming to 258,550 with reimbursements on repair orders from other departments of 98,000, bringing it to 160,000, which is down from last year and right on from the last couple of years, averaged together. Uniforms and clothing allowance. Work uniforms provided to the employees. We have contracted service. The tub grinder price went down a little bit. We bid for a better price. That's a tub grinder that we share with other communities. Hazardous waste disposal, copier and lease supplies, office supplies, 800 of which you could see that was for a new scanner for the secretaries, I believe,
And engineering.
and engineering. Minor tools, everything you'd expect there. Road maintenance for the summer, we got a better price on the chip seal program, which has been great for that because we're down from the last 2 years. There's a line you can see discussing reclaiming and repave Old Sachem's Head Road. That was the line initially in part of road maintenance summer as part of the chip seal project with a plan by the Public Works, but that has been moved to capital. Road maintenance in the winter. There's a price increase in sand went up a little bit, so that's why there's a little bit of a bump on there just from last year, but just very minor. Road stripping and signs. There's been an increased demand, particularly from the police department, for just increased signage and visibility of that kind of stuff around town. We're also using a newer road stripping that lasts much longer now, so it doesn't have to be replaced quite as often as it used to. Rental equipment, that is down particularly because of there was a loader that was purchased that came below the bidded price, and we used the excess funds to purchase a roller, which we used to rent for upwards of $6,000-7,000 a year. So now that's another piece of equipment that we own and don't have to pay for the rental. Permits, due subscriptions, as laid out there. Education and training, just keeping money on hand for employees who need to be trained in software, equipment, whatever it may be. So the total budget comes to $2,412,977.53. That's a $53,764 increase at 2.2%. Any questions?
Mary Jane has
I
come.
just want to note, back to full-time salaries, that if you look at the sheets in the back, our offices have prepared what that salary would be based on our current contract. So we would be looking for you to specifically approve or not approve the 3 increases that this department has asked for. Based on today's contracts and salaries, we'd be at 1.385. They've requested 3 increases outside of that, which brings it up to 1.408. So that would be a conscious decision on your part to approve those.
We wouldn't be doing that at this meeting.
No, everybody's here, so I'm getting the
And
information.
that's a Board of Selectmen decision.
Correct.
Any questions about the operating?
There's 3 on this sheet.
Six. It's 6.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's 2 sets.
3 line items,
Right.
three different lines.
While we're talking about it, Mitch, from HR perspective, has this been run through your department and as far as contractually and everything?
I've been made aware of it, yes. But they're certainly out of the norm for some of this. And to correct Dean for a second, they're not step increases, they're classification grade increases. So it's not just moving up on a step. These are actually promotions, and he did say that, promotions for certain people, 2 of whom are in the GEA. I'm not sure how we're going to handle that because that's not part of the contract. So there's going to have to be some more discussion about all of this, I think, as Matt said, of course.
Right.
I have a lot of questions about this too.
And as I recall, there were discussions last year at this time related to these same employees. And my understanding is because we were in the negotiations with GEA that the previous administration decided not to act on those. So it is back here for our consideration. I had asked that the justification be presented to us for a variety of reasons. One, if someone is doing a job at above their current grade level, they deserve to have the appropriate title for a couple of reasons. One, the employee deserves it. 2, we're setting a dangerous precedent with our union, that if we have folks who are doing work that is in excess of their job classification, we are opening ourselves up to some potential concerns. So I asked for that justification. If we need a little more than that, certainly, I'm certain the commission and the management will be happy to provide it. But that was the rationale for making sure you had this in front of you today. And in terms of the GEA,
second page to
Yeah,
this,
it's the
because
second
the
page.
paragraph ends in the middle.
the third one is completely unrelated to what we were discussing
And I
today.
agree, because I was part of those negotiations, and there is, I mean, I guess, on this sheet, they're using the word promotion, but it really is perfecting the classifications, is what it comes down to, and I appreciate that part of it, but we do have to make sure it aligns itself contractually.
Right.
So that, we're not exposing ourselves to
Exactly. And the justification needs to be clear as to
that
what.
part is, the commission, it's just like buying a truck. They know when to buy a truck and when to deal with things. So it's not just like buying a truck really fast.
A little different than truck.
Bodies and trucks.
But the valuation process, I mean, that's your job. You don't want to micromanage your commission. But you do have to make sure all the T's are crossed.
Ron?
This is minor, but in the Park and Rec department, they talked about supplying snow melt and ice melt for the fire department as well as their department. I'm wondering why it's not supplied entirely in the Public Works department, and then they can get what they need. Allocated as needed.
Good question. I don't know if I can answer it. Is that something that we could share?
I think what they're talking about really is a different product that we use. We could do it. I mean, it's just that the tradition has been we take care of the sand and the small products for our major roads. It's just a tradition that they've taken care of that. It's for the parking lots. It also probably encompasses walkways. We don't get involved with walkways, I think. So it's.
But again, it goes to Park and Recreation, not, it's like maybe it should be in town properties. It's a maintenance issue. I mean, it's a supply. I don't think it.
Yeah, and I think there's just a transfer from one department to another. I don't know if there's any real savings associated with that. I think it's just a way it's been carried through. Like all things that can change, it's not that significant additional.
I would turn this over to capital. If that's
No, I have a couple of questions actually for material purchases. Yesterday at our meeting, we had a presentation regarding a potential ordinance change for use of fracking waste in municipalities. And the argument that has been made, or at least presented, is that this material, solid material from basically drilling mud and other materials, and then liquid waste, finds its way into either construction material, chip sealing material, road base. In some cases, they were saying that there's like brine that potentially can be sold, either mixed in or sold separately as a road treatment for ice and snow. So my question is, are you aware of that issue? This is really directed to Jim because it's really purely an operational question, right? Are you aware of the issue, and is there any discussion regarding certifying the materials that we do buy? I mean, do you know precisely what is in the material that we're buying and where it's coming from?
Well, the materials that we purchase, say, for chip sealing or for paving, those come under a state specification that we utilize. To my knowledge, there's no potential for those materials to be included in the manufacture of either the chip sealing oils or the asphalt. The other products we use, the sand is a local source. It wouldn't be included. And then you have the salts, which are totally different altogether. So I'm not familiar with them as being something that would be something we would use or included with us in what we use.
So if
I've seen the signs about.
Yeah.
I wondered what that was all about.
So if the ordinance went into effect, and tomorrow morning you had to contend with an ordinance that said you're not allowed to use fracking waste, would it change your purchasing decisions at all?
Not to my knowledge. No.
It would change the bid documents that we use to go out for purchases. because the bid documents
to
would have to,
certify.
would have to
Specify.
specify that those materials were prohibited.
That would be part of our standard bid package regardless of
Right.
what we were purchasing. So.
Of the products that Jim mentioned, and based on what we heard yesterday, I would suspect salt might be the most likely candidate because of, you heard the number of gallons of embedded sea salt that they're releasing from these fracking wastes, that the desalinization probably results in, in something there. However, it's a good point.
It doesn't affect our materials. So.
We're just trying to get
No,
some
not that we
information to
don't.
make, we haven't made a decision, we're just trying to get some information to fill in around our decision-making.
You do a little research and get back to them.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Well, I would think it was going to impact future budgets too. I mean, you can't use, you have to get different materials.
Well, that's what I want to know. Do we have to get the
Yeah.
materials? It sounds like maybe we're already, get local sand, the chip sealing is under a state review, but it would be nice to know that somebody has checked that and it would not change our expenses. Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, for the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Yes, I'd like to ask, under equipment repair and maintenance, there's a subtraction after the line item $58,000, there's a $98,000 subtraction for reimbursement on repair orders. How does that work?
That comes from a reimbursement from other departments for repairs to the equipment for the police, park and rec.
Okay, I see, other town
Or
departments, so
transportation.
their budgets theoretically have lines totaling that amount.
And that's equipment only, right? Equipment only, or supplies, equipment and supplies.
Thank you.
Other questions? Mike?
Real quick one, radio maintenance. Just underneath that, there's a $5,000 item and it says begin updates on radios. When it says begin, does that mean there's a start and then next year and the year after there's bigger numbers coming after that? Or what is?
We share all our radio equipment with other town departments, and we try to make sure that it's updated according to.
I would understand updates, but when it said begin, I start thinking,
We need to begin the process of updating our equipment. And currently, it's integrating with other town departments as well, too.
Okay.
So everybody's
So
integrating on the
is
same
that budget going to
system.
stay at 5,000?
I can't
next
answer
year,
that
the year after
question.
that?
I don't know what the agreement is. It's brought to, under one contractor that services all the radio equipment throughout, police, fire, and other, park and rec. So I think it goes across the board. We take a section of that budget for our trucks.
So any increases are going to be coming out of another?
I would assume whatever the contract is on an annualized basis from the vendor.
And in addition to that, there are new pieces of equipment we've purchased over the last couple of years that we have to put new radios in. And we have, for instance, the brand new one we bought last year. It doesn't have a radio now, and the other one is obsolete and could be repaired. So we have to upgrade. We have to put a radio in that, and that's very important for times when we have emergencies, when everything else is down. There's still communication within the department to these pieces of equipment. We're moving equipment around all the town. You have trees down here, and you have to be able to communicate. So it's also including, I think, inclusion of two new radios for equipment that we've purchased over the last couple of years.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not questioning the need. Of course,
Yeah.
I know the need.
No, I understand.
but if it's 5,000 this year and next year it's going to be 25,000 because we began a process that we have to commit to next year because we're behind. That's all I'm
We don't
wondering.
anticipate.
Okay, thank you.
Dean, Jim, can I ask you a question about your fuel calculations? No, probably difficult, but do you just base it on the number of gallons used last year and then look at an increase?
We look at plus the contract price for the fuel itself.
Okay.
That's up a little bit this year.
Are you primarily diesel? Or are you also like a mix of diesel and gasoline?
We have diesel, we have gasoline, and we also have an additive that's very important for us to be able to maintain the quality of the fuel especially this time of year.
Okay. Your increase is actually significantly lower than another department, so just I'm trying to include that in my
It's
mind.
based on usage and contract price.
Any other questions?
Move to capital.
In capital this year, okay, there are several items. First would be the,
Is there any way to get Jim on the table?
Yeah, I was just thinking.
Jill?
And I know we haven't been doing capital for every department, but if you flip to the capital tab, there is a summary of everything that you can see if you don't have your capital budget with you.
I'll just do the capital for this year rather than do the 5-year. Bonding, we have a $500,000 bond issue for construction of a wash bay for the trucks and equipment down there. And actually hiring an architect and doing the design with the funds are insufficient to build the structure that we need. So we're requesting $350,000 additional dollars for that. We have various drainage projects. We have $25,000, and that'll cover like replacement of culverts on County Road, on Jacobs Lane, projects that are fairly easily identified. They usually involve doing something for a local area that needs to be done. We have money in our budget for replacing a catch basin tops and everything else, but this is funds that we need to access to build specific projects. We have $75,000 for sidewalks. That's maintenance. We have this year is going to. I anticipate it's going to be a real headache. We have a long period of cold weather. We have a lot of ground freezing, and what you have is and then you'll have thaw. You'll have those sidewalks heaving up. Then you'll have them settling down, and it'll be deterioration. That's an ongoing issue any place you have sidewalks. We have a sidewalk expansion.
I was just going to ask about. Go ahead with sidewalk expansion.
Okay. There is a line item for sidewalk expansion, Boston Street. This was put in last year in anticipation of the construction of the shoreline Greenway Trail from East River back towards the center of town. That was going to terminate roughly at the junction of Boston Street and Route 1. That left a gap between the existing sidewalk on Boston Street, which ends about where Alderbrook Cemetery is. And so the thought was over a 3-year period we would close that gap. And that's why you see figures, they have 70, 60, and 70. The first one being from Alderbrook going towards Soundview. There's a culvert replacement or extension we have to do there on Boston Street. And then the subsequent 2 years, then we complete the gap. Okay. Rather than throw it all in 1 year. That may or may not, and that's your judgment, whether we want to keep that money in there or not, because the decision was not to go forward with the shoreline treatment. Right. But if we decided to put a sidewalk in there, this could be used for that, starting right at Alderbrook and start going east, which is part of our.
How far would you get with this 70,000?
Probably from Alderbrook to Soundview.
Okay.
Because there's one big element there, as I said, there's a cross culvert under Boston Street. Right. That would have to be extended, and that's a pricey issue right there.
And from there it goes out to Route 1?
No, because there's an existing sidewalk out to Route 1. Yeah,
right.
We made them put in when they developed that site. No, we would then use the opportunity, probably at that point, just to terminate it there and then go up the hill, and then we haven't looked at where it's on the north side of Boston Street and going out that way. Okay. So we would then make the judgment: do we then continue along that north side of Boston Street out to Route 1, or do we use that opportunity because it's a 4-way stop to cross over and go up the south side? Right. Because that's more of a controlled intersection rather than go up to the top of the hill where it's kind of a chancy situation where the traffic issues are kind of questionable there. So we would work that out. The next item, we're replacing 2 vehicles, and it's part of our long-term commitment to replace vehicles for Public Works. First one is the 85 Mack. It's 40 for identification. It's 44 GU. That's just the license plate number. And we've got updated pricing on that. It would cost $236,000 to replace that vehicle fully equipped. as required by DOT. And then the second item was a six-wheel dump truck replaces a 1999 vehicle 91 GU for the same price. They're basically the same. We put out a bid that would cover both items, and that's a completely outfitted truck. Nothing else down until we.
What's that number?
It's $236,000.
Both of them?
No.
Each.
Each? No, I mean, each one is the same price.
Right, exactly.
That was a 96 vehicle.
That was
91 G is the license plate number.
Yeah.
Yeah, one is a 99 truck, and the other one's a.
It says one's a 96 truck, and one's an 85.
I'm sorry, it's 85.
85 and
I was looking at the next
96.
one. Yes, 85 is the first one, and 96 is the second. We then have a request for kind of a portable lift. We have a lift in the garage, a truck lift. Unfortunately, when we do have repairs on trucks, it gets used, and once you put the truck on the lift, you take up there, that lift puts that bay out of service. What we would like to do is get these what they call portable lifts that they can just put in with a second bay that we can utilize if we have like a breakdown in the middle of a storm. We can still lift the truck, get out there and fix it rather than wait for the other one to come out. So that's $44,000, and that price has been updated from $40,000 that we had held for a couple of years to $44,000. We have a quote that's on a week old. And then the last item, which I originally put into the summer road maintenance, was the reconstruction of Old Sachem's Head Road from Uncas Point to Indian Hill Road. That's a road in an area where we are doing chip sealing. We planned this year to do chip sealing all of the Sachem's Head, Vineyard Point, Old Sachem's Head area, Trolley Road, as well as Peddler's Road. So that would take care of that whole section. Has been done in a number of years, but this one section of road is in very poor condition. Part of the deterioration of the road was the fact that a water main was put in that road, about 20 years ago. We do have $18,000 that I had the water company put into a dedicated road fund with anticipation that when and if we got to that point, we could access that money. So the price of reconstructing the road from Uncas Point back to Indian Hill is about approximately $94,000. We would defray that 94 with about $18,000 from the dedicated road fund, and our out-of-pocket cost would be about $66,000. So that's what we're looking for. The total would be then for this year $752,000.
Question about sidewalks. You have two line items for sidewalks. One is detailed. That's the Alderbrook Southview one.
Yeah.
The other one is for $75,000, but it's not detailed.
No, and that's the ongoing maintenance of all the sidewalks. It's not the one we talked.
Number.
Yeah, that covers all the existing sidewalks in town, repairs for those sidewalks. The one from Alderbrook back is really it's a capital project, new sidewalk basically.
Right. You guys going to give the Park and Rec people a little room to park their vehicles and keep them out of the weather?
No,
We had an
absolutely not. We've already conceded.
That wasn't on the budget.
We've already given them too much space.
Can we get updated copies of the capital sheet for these guys? Because he revised the capital, right?
He did.
Jim, are you doing a
almost
project
there.
with Nut Plains Road this upcoming budget cycle?
We will.
Who's the state?
We had applied for and received permission to go forward with what we call a LOTSIP program from reconstruction of Nut Plains from North Massa Road southerly to Goose Lane. This state's budgetary situation.
This is funded by LOSIP money, right?
Yeah, that one would have been funded by LOSIP. We do have, but it would only go as far as Goose Lane from Nut Plains, from North Madison. We do have in a bond issue money to rebuild the section of Nut Plains from State Street to Goose Lane, and that's what we'll be working on.
We are doing it, and we expect the LOSIP money to be there to fund it.
No.
No.
LOSIP is a different pool of money. Our low SIP money this year is going to be kind of set aside. We've just got approval of a contract last year for rebuilding and replacement of the bridge on Sawmill Road. Our portion of that cost would be paid through LoSiP, rather than.
So how will we fund the Nut Plains Road project?
Bond issue. We had bond issue was approved 2 years ago.
Oh, it's already approved.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I
No.
saw in the back of the capital
It is
budget books, I thought it said it was funded by LoSiP, and I was confused why it wasn't in the front, actually.
Yeah, but then the state pulled the money.
Well, there's another one. There's WATSIP, which is the Nut Plains Road Reconstruction Project itself. It's LOTSIP, not CIP rather, not LoSiP, but that is the state. The state had a full set aside in the Department of Transportation. The money is allocated by vote of South Central Council regional governments, who determine what roadway projects each community in the 13-member Council of Governments get. That's the money that the state has pulled. They had pulled that prior to the governor announcing that the $4 billion worth of projects, which is a whole separate set of projects, was going to be put on hold indefinitely. Until such time as the legislature enacts either a gas tax or tolls or whatever, but if they decide to go that way.
I have some questions, too, about the wash bay. Have we broken ground on the wash bay?
No.
And we're planning on a request for another $350,000 of funding?
Yeah, that's based on
that item.
The architect's estimate. We are now in the process of seeking a variance on the side yard separation. The bay would be built in close proximity to the railroad right-of-way. And under zoning, we have to have a minimum setback distance between the railroad right-of-way and any structure. We are going to ZBA this month to request that setback distance be varied, that we would go down to what we would need to do to build the building. So it's a step in the process of design, and then we'll go into construction.
Okay, I guess it's publicly known that I'm not too big a fan of this. When it came up for bonding a few years back, I thought it wasn't really essential, and I was worried about the expansiveness of it. I am kind of curious, do other municipalities our size have facilities like this?
Every municipality is dealing with this issue, more so this year because there is a new program that the Department of Environmental Protection is enforcing, MSR4. It's something dictated by the federal government. What we are required to do is to have practices that will not degrade the groundwaters of the state of Connecticut. And so we have to have procedures, and we have many of them in place. We clean our catch basins, we sweep our streets, all those things that are important for the maintenance of the quality of our rivers and groundwaters. One of the other items we have to do is we have to do something with the wash water that comes from maintaining our trucks. As you well know, we put a lot of salt down on these roads. What the state and the federal government have said, for the sake of water quality, we have to keep that water from when we wash them, because it also then becomes mixed with oils and any other kind of hydrocarbons that are part of maintaining our vehicles. That doesn't get into the groundwaters or the streams. So we have to have a practice set up that we're doing that. Is it universally done in every community? No, but I think every community will be dealing with this. Some communities have systems already, some don't.
We looked at the possibility of just bringing the trucks to local car washes.
Yes, we have.
And done any kind of cost analysis?
There's none around. We checked everywhere we checked. There's nothing that can handle our trucks, the height of our trucks as far as regular wash, like we see from Madison. We went all the way up, and then even out to Milford would be the closest place.
Not even like 76 truck wash up in Brantford there?
No. So the closest place would be Milford, probably $80 a truck, plus the fact of the travel time, the manpower time, moving the trucks back and forth.
There's also a secondary consideration besides some other towns doing it. The consideration is that we've invested to rebuild our fleet and come in with new trucks that will last longer than the standard. We want to keep our trucks on the road for in case, for all intents and purposes, 20 years or more. If you look at some of the trucks that we're replacing from 1985, I don't know if any of you have any vehicles that you own that you're driving around since 1985. So we've done a pretty good job at maintaining and prolonging the longevity of our equipment. All the salt is really corrosive to our vehicles, and it's important to get them washed, and that'll prolong their lives. So it's not the engine that gives up, it's usually the body. So
we're talking about 130 trucks at about $80 to wash in Milford.
Well, there's varying parts of equipment. Some are trucks, and some would be smaller trucks, and we're sharing the wash bay with every department within the town. Some will be regular cars, and some will be trucks. So ultimately, the use of this wash station will be used by all town vehicles. So.
Is there an opportunity to share it, to do something in cooperation with another municipality, say Madison, shared costs and?
It's a great idea. We've talked about it. I think once we get this open, I think it'd be a benefit to have other towns use the facility, but the priority would be within Guilford first. So.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but I mean, it might be like the waste transfer station.
A great idea. We've talked about it.
Yeah.
We're not at that stage yet, but it is in consideration when we do go forward with it. So.
This was one of my follow-up questions as well, and that would at least defer some cost if we could share it with other towns nearby.
To that end,
Like the dump,
to
like
that
the
end,
model of the
I
dump.
had the opportunity to meet with Tom Banish a couple of weeks ago, and we agreed to explore opportunities for mutual cooperation and sharing of either services or facilities. So it hasn't taken form yet, but it will. Those discussions will be going on. So I'll add this item to the list to see if there's any interest in participating.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your time. We appreciate it.
We appreciate it. Well done. So do we. And just for the record, additional commission members sitting in the audience, just goes to show old selectmen never go away. They wind up on Public Works Commission. Gene Bishop, thanks for your service.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good presentation as always.
Thank you. These are updated sheets that include the Sachems head. If you could pass that around.
Capital budget. Your capital books. For your capital book.
Yeah, you don't.
In my lobby.
Yeah, I can't either. I have to be in Hartford. This is 1:45.
Paperwork? Come on.
This is the last one.
Okay, maybe we'll do this quickly.
We'd like to.
You guys do it in double time?
We can give them more than they're asking for.
Reader Digest.
That would go
We're asking for less.
Well done. Ask for more and keep the thing with
Yeah, see, no, this is the problem.
Thank you.
They said they updated their budget 6,000 left, 44,000 because they just got approved. It's a week old.
Okay.
And we're still showing 40.
We don't have a transfer.
You can read the letter to it.
No, this right here?
We do. We have it.
Oh, you do. Thank you.
Oh, it's in the velocity part, isn't it?
It's right behind page 4. It's page 3, page 4.
Okay, we didn't have
It's in our little.
It's online too.
I'm so impressed with all this now, this technology.
We're there, yeah.
We're getting there.
Although yesterday was like, you gotta pinch it together.
No.
have an electric.
All right.
I don't know what it is.
What happens?
Okay, we're on to Fire Department Communications. Welcome, Commissioner Wilson and Chief Rorschach, or Ken and Charlie.
Thank you for having us. I think in your package you have a letter that I sent off to the boards regarding our upcoming budget for 18 and 19. There's a couple of things in the letter. I won't read the entire letter to you, but there's a few things I would like to point out. First of all, this budget has been fully approved by the Board of Fire Commissioners, all 5 of us. We vetted it with the Fire Administration. We've gone through it line by line, and we accepted and approved it at our recent January meeting. In addition, we also want to state that this budget does not include any increase in personnel for the upcoming fiscal year, but it does take into consideration the recent acceptance back in October of the 2017 SAFER grant, which was 8 firefighting EMS personnel. And I point that out because there will be 25% of the cost of that grant will be included in our budget for the upcoming 18-19 year.
In the salary line?
Yes. In addition, I'd like to point out that the town of Guilford and the IAFF personnel right now are presently in negotiations, so there's been no increases to any salary lines that relate to that. There's other increases, but I'll point those out as we go along. We hope that that's going to be settled over the next months, but we don't know the outcome yet.
So kind of, I'm sorry, just to stop you there. So back to that full-time salary, so it's roughly $100,000 more. So that reflects the SAFER increase, but not the salary negotiation increase.
Right. There's 3. I'll point that out.
Okay.
Just give me 1 second.
All right, great, thanks.
I'll be more than happy to
On
do that.
that, the SAFER salaries were figured based on the current salaries.
I'm just trying to understand the difference between the increase. There's roughly $100,000 increase, and that's where it's reflected.
SAFER and steps.
Okay. Right. Overall, the budget that we presented without the negotiations being settled and so forth is a $23,841 increase over the current year. One of the things that we're always concerned about, and I know that the Board of Finance especially looks at, is our revenue. We looked at this over the last 2-3 years. As you know, we get our revenue from various sources. There's a couple of the sources that, although we're allowed to charge increases in what we provide for service, we do not get an increase in reimbursement. So we are recommending that the present revenue target stay at $875,800. Now to get into the actual line items, and I think this will address what you were asking. The full-time salaries account. There is a $102,130 increase in that line. This increase is due to, first of all, step increases. We have new personnel, so you have some people that are going from B to C or B to A step, whatever it may be. Also, we have the management contractual increases, which they're under contract for 3 years, so they're in the second year of their contract, so that's reflected in that $102,000. In addition, 25% of the cost for those 8 personnel that was accepted back in October is reflected in that $102,130. Okay, and again, without the contract negotiations, we don't know what the overall will be increased to that line. Now, does that answer that question, though?
Yeah, thank you.
But
Your
what
comments
step-
on the detail
what's-
are good.
What step increases if the contract has expired?
Well, automatically, we have people that are on, for example, step C. They would go to step D, but they'll go at the rate that we're presently working on, under the contract that we're working on now. So they'll automatically go to that. You don't freeze them. So you go from C to B, B to A at the present rate. Okay? Is there any follow-up question to that? Okay. Going through the remainder of the salary line items, The commission clerk is something that was provided to us from Town Hall, so that's $179. The stipends. Stipends are for, there is an increase for the 8 new firefighters that will come on as a result of the SAFER grants. That $9,000 is the portion that we're responsible for. That's the 25%. Okay? And again, that stipends, like every other, anything related to salaries, does not reflect what we settle on.
A question.
Yes.
Is it stepped up to 100% over 3-4 years to where it becomes our 100% obligation?
Yes, it will be actually in the 4th or 5th year. Fourth year. Fourth fiscal year.
25% a year.
No, 25, 65.
And then 100.
Right, and then 100 in the 4th year. Right. Now, as a result of the hire of the 8 firefighters due to the SAFER grant, we have a reduction on our replacement salaries account of $113,694. And that has to do with, if you will, call-ins, second ambulance. Now we have that personnel, so now we can implement them as the backup where we don't have to call in people to necessarily fill in. So that will reduce that, and that was a major portion of it. So overall, in the salaries, without obviously a settlement, we're looking at a negative $2,385. Okay. In the, if you will, the variables, there's no increase in the fire marshal's expense, and Charlie is always pleased to spend his $303, but there's no increase in civil preparedness this year. Utilities and fuel. Again, that just reflects the cost of whatever the going rate is, of whether it's electric, whether it's cable, whether it's fuel or gasoline. That's not something that we have control over. We use, and if you look in your, I think, in the package, it'll give you the volumes that we use each year. Building maintenance, a 0% increase or 0 increase. Radio receivers, health and welfare, fire prevention, they're all 0 increases. We talked about that at the commission meeting. The fire administration and the commission feels that we can operate with what we have or what we budgeted, and we've been able to stay within those dollar amounts. The operating supplies, $9,500. That increase is due to new and replacement turnout gear and costs from existing vendors for necessary firefighting and EMS equipment. And that includes medical supplies, the drugs that we have to carry. Unfortunately, some of the stuff that we carry is it expires, so we have to dispose of it, and then we have to get new. And just like anything, if you bought a Band-Aid last year for $1, this year you're going to buy it for $1.25, we still have to get it. We still need it on our vehicles. And turnout gear and any other equipment that we have, they have a shelf life. And after a while, that they need to be replaced or they need to be repaired, and we need to take care of that. So that's embedded in that $9,000 as well. Yes?
Ken,
Yep.
would new equipment, like boots and fire jackets and stuff for the 8 new employees, where would that be?
We outlined that when we presented in October. That's going to be in this year's. That's the additional $105,000.
So you're going to buy that out of the current operating budget?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And we are also, we're being proactive in the purchase of that, Matt,
right.
Because as the assistant chief just told me, we've purchased helmets already in advance, and as a result of purchasing, we were able to get a discount. So we're able to reduce the cost. So we're hoping that the 105, if it's 100, it's 100, right. Whatever. But we're trying to be proactive in getting them involved.
Good.
Okay. Marine Division, new equipment. There is no increase. and there's no request for new equipment under that particular line item.
That's
Yes.
a question regarding that.
Yeah.
Right now, halfway through the year, you're over 100% on Marine. It's about, I think I saw, if I saw correctly, 112%.
That's just because of
Is that a-
misposting on the accounts. They should have been put into maintenance. It wasn't caught. We can straighten that out with finance.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
And that would bring us under.
Okay.
And we talked about that.
Yeah, I
as
just-
well.
And the maintenance costs do not come out of Marine Division. They should come out of the vehicle maintenance. And unfortunately, a couple of those got
Okay. So
missed by me and got through.
It's a reallocation.
Right.
Okay.
One of the things that, one area, well, first of all, is it says CMed membership. We are now part of Valley Shore Mutual Aid. That should be what it is. That cost is $12,000. There's no increase to provide that service for us, and that comes out of, that replaces CMed, which should probably say Valley Shore Mutual Aid. But
It's Valley Shore is CMed.
no, not CMed. Education and training. It's one area that we always look at. When you have 8 new firefighter EMS people coming on, we have to provide that. We're trying to do that in-house as much as we can. So that will require us to purchase some things for them as well in training. In addition, that is also for in-state training courses that we're going to have to provide. In addition, any speakers fees. What we're trying to do is be more proactive at our own station and do things in town versus sending people out. And in doing that, there is a cost related to that when you bring somebody in, a speaker into the station. So that's what you're seeing in that $3,500 request. Vehicle maintenance, our fleet, as people know, we just bought a brand new ambulance, so we're reducing, obviously, a little bit of expense there. God bless you. We're buying a new rescue truck, which will be new, so that's a good thing as well. But we feel that overall, the $170,000 is right on where we need to be right now. We don't not see a need for an increase, and we'll continue to monitor that account as we go along. So overall, in the variable side, $26,226 increase for a net increase in our budget of $23,841. I'll answer questions before we move on to the second page, or the third page, if there's anybody that has any questions, or the chief, or the assistant chief, anybody?
Jonathan?
I have a couple of questions. Your vehicle maintenance is trending pretty well, better than some of the other departments. So what do you attribute that to? Is that because we have been replacing equipment, or?
Preventive maintenance is the main reason. And obviously, the fleet's getting a little newer. The ambulances are the Chevy, switching before to a Chevy has been a big savings on both on mechanical and on fuel. So we've seen a significant change on both of those. The new ambulance coming in is also a Chevy. So it's been a remarkable difference in
So I also wanted to ask a little bit about fuel and utilities. You're also trending better than some other departments on fuel. Are you guys primarily diesel fuel, or I'm sure you have
we're
a
a
mix,
combination
right?
of diesel. Majority of it's diesel, about 14,000 gallons of diesel fuel we use.
Okay.
And we use about 5,000 gallons of gasoline. Don't hold me exactly, but that's where we are.
From one of the other departments, it looked like diesel had a pretty big increase from one of their projections. And then utilities, I see are going up about 10%. I kind of saw a trend in some other departments going down in utilities. So
Again, it all depends how we budgeted that last year, and we're looking at actuals again from last year to do this year's, so there can be a variable there in how much is used.
okay. And then the other question was, it was very positive to see that the SAFER grant kind of gave us a little benefit in terms of replacement salaries. Will that carry over at all into overtime, or?
I don't think it's going to affect overtime one way or the other. Overtime, I know right now overtime's in a little bit of trouble, and the main reason is because of long-term injuries. We have one that's been out over almost 2 years, and obviously that's going to get offset by the full-time salaries. Some of it, not all of it, and the increase in major incidents and that kind of stuff is really driving the overtime. But that's every other year. There's a problem with overtime. But I don't know, we're trying to keep it under control.
Yep.
We only pay overtime every 28 days. So the majority of the time is at straight time. So at the 28 period in the 212 cycle, they receive what's called Garcia, which is the half time. Okay, everybody gets paid full time at straight time. Okay, but they don't get half time until they exceed the 212 28 days.
Yeah, so
cycle.
why is it called Garcia?
Because of the federal law.
Garcia versus.
Garcia versus.
The original.
It's not a town.
No.
Yeah, I got them all memorized.
I have enough history to remember that the town got very familiar with Garcia.
Okay.
So Ken, we've had like a few conversations here and there. I know they're kind of informal, but I keep questioning you about how could we ramp up the volunteer fire department more to help augment incident response with our professional fire department. Is there maybe an opportunity in education and training?
We have an application
get
for you.
certified?
We have an application for everybody who sits on the board. It's a countrywide problem. As you know, you're on your own party boards. It's hard to get volunteers to sit on boards and commissions. Now, just imagine the additional training that you have to do, to become a firefighter. You got 600 hours just for firefighter 1 training, 120 hours just for EMT. That's just the start, and then you got to maintain it, and then you have to meet your monthly quarters. So it's kind of a lot of time. You have to be really dedicated, which we do. We have some very dedicated volunteers, and we try to take care of them. And we've tried everything that everybody else in the country has tried and in the state has tried. And the results are, we've actually had better results than some towns have.
I was specifically kind of driving into the certifications, and I'm wondering, do we give them some help to get some
Absolutely.
of these certifications?
Absolutely. Yes. But again, the help is the financial issue is not the issue. The issue is the personal time.
Time commitment.
Okay, their personal time. But again, we have an application if you're interested.
I tell you, it sounds exciting, but I don't know if I can qualified for that
It's
work.
become much more demanding than it was a
Tough
year,
work.
in the
Yeah.
70s.
It's
and
not the
80s,
days gone by.
It's not.
No.
It's and it's just.
Yeah, and I know
times. There's
employers
nothing we
these
can do
days
about it.
are not as
No.
forgiving when you say, hey, I got to respond to a fire.
No. And you can't just take a person that volunteers and signs an application and put them in harm's way. They have to be trained. They have to be certified. There's certain codes, NFPA standards, and things that we have to do, OSHA requirements, et cetera, that we have to do, and they have to do to be a volunteer firefighter.
So how much help do we give them to get some of their certifications, and then are we sort of recruiting from our volunteer?
All of it.
All of it.
So if they want to get a certification, you'll pay for the whole thing?
They just got to donate their time.
Right. If they, like you said, if they donate their time, we have the people in-house to be able to get them certified, to train them, ramp them up to where they need to be.
Answer your last question, John. One of our recent hires was a volunteer firefighter that's now, paid for.
Okay.
Firefighter who's worked his way up through the ranks. So I think it also is a good training ground for those that aren't interested.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Somebody brought this up with me recently, and I didn't know how to respond. I was told that surrounding towns that do not have a paid fire department and rely on volunteers, that we jump in and assist them when necessary, which is great, and we do that without being compensated by the town
Municipal aid.
volunteers.
We're part of Valley Shore Mutual Aid, and we have reciprocal agreements with other towns to the west as well. So when they need our assistance, we get called in, and vice versa. If we have a structure fire and we need people, we'll call in from other towns to come our way as well. Or whatever the call may be. I shouldn't just say fire. It could be anything. So we have reciprocal agreements, but we do not get compensated on the fire side. If we go over to Madison to do an intercept for an EMS call for an ambulance or something like that, then we can bill and things like that. Anything you want to add to that, Chief?
No, you covered it. Yeah, there's state statutes that does not allow municipalities to bill each other for mutual aid. You know, and it's not a major occurrence by any means. That you know, we also receive mutual aid from the volunteer departments that come into us. Right. Okay. So I mean, it's a mutual aid type thing, and you only get called when the situation requires additional assets that we don't have. And the main thing is personnel. You know, everybody's hurting for personnel, and that's the main reason why we're calling in for it.
I think a perfect example, yesterday in our Board of Selectmen meeting, I asked the chief about the call in Essex, and that was we are the regional hazmat team, so we went over to Essex for that particular call. That's it. You know, we help each other out. That's a perfect example. Yes.
You're always staffing it at an ALS level, right? You're always having a paramedic in your team.
And more than one. Any other questions from that?
Thank you. No, thank you.
Excellent.
And
Communications.
no, that's this guy. That doesn't fall under us.
Before you go, how many calls did you guys answer last year?
We average about 3,600 calls for service each year. And it will vary.
Have you noticed any EMT responses or any change in narcotic overdoses?
Oh, God, yes.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Yes. Is that continuing to?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Ken, can you qualify that 3,600 calls a year? Is that total calls or is that fire and
No, that's total
EMS?
calls, everything.
Total calls?
That's everything. That's structure, that's
And EMS.
medical, EMS, everything, anything.
And so the
10 a day, yeah.
Drugs that you need to administer.
Narcan.
Yeah.
Is that?
That's in there.
It's in there.
And that's
part of that.
A part of the increase.
Yeah.
We're using a lot of Narcan.
God, that's sad.
It is. It is. Good. All right. Thank you.
Communications.
Thank you, Ken.
Everybody got the letter. I tried to make it short and sweet. The two areas of increase is telephones and maintenance contracts. Telephones is basically wireless carriers. There's been a big switch to, imagine this, iPhones from flip phones. So there's a lot more data plans and a bigger increase in mobile data terminals in the fire department and in police department, but mainly the fire department. There is some stuff in there. The communications department is basically has the majority. I don't want to say all because there are a few stragglers, but there are. I think we got 98% of the cell phones now in the account, and we're constantly going through the accounts and getting rid of numbers and adding numbers. But operationally, there's been some changes in that account. Okay, to iPhones. And then service contracts, just increase in some of this stuff is the computer software, hardware support increase for public safety radio systems and the mobile data systems. The Cisco Meraki, Matt knows this, license is increased. SOFR antivirus, XC satellite internet, and for the EOC located at fire headquarters. And increase in the VIN extraction software, which is basically it's a piece of software that we put your VIN number in of your automobile, and it will tell us where your batteries are located, where your safety devices are located, like airbags. Airbags are big problems for us. If we don't know where they are and we go to cut one, we're going to wear one. So we want to make sure that we know where they are when we cut it. So it's important with this piece of equipment. It's right on the money, and this one also allows us, interestingly, this particular package also allows us to put your license plate number in, and tells you exactly if it's the same vehicle, and they're right on. I don't know, it's a yearly renewal, but they're right on. The license plate's been a lot better than the VIN number. So, all right. So basically, that's all there is for communication.
Charlie, can you talk for a minute about the VOC or your Mike?
Oh, Mike's the VO chief person.
VO chief.
Come right up here, Mike.
In my baptism to the emergency management center or protocols here a couple of weeks ago, I had heard we had some pretty slick software, but Mike walked me through some stuff. Mike, you want to?
Sure. So primary use in emergency management for the VOC software is so it's essentially virtually can bring everybody together in a small scale, large scale, or any size emergency. So the emergency management team throughout the town, in the event that we have a significant snowstorm, we've used it for the hurricanes, flooding events, stuff like that, trees down, wires down. We used it for the big storm with the wind, where we had a bunch of areas of town with trees and wires and roads blocked. So, but it's basically a platform that virtually allows us to share information and be able to broadcast messages and communicate internally throughout the town.
Right. It also incorporates some other feeds from the state as
Yep,
well?
so the Web EOC. So we can incorporate anything that we're doing here in town into the state Web EOC. So in the event that the town needs or needs to request anything from the state, we can request stuff from our local resources to the state level, to the state EOC.
Police department interaction on that as well. That we're breaking down those traditional turf walls between professional services too, right?
Yep, we're working to. The goal is hopefully over time to collectively use the software every day. It's like anything. If you don't use it every day, trying to dust it off once a year, once every storm. But throughout the emergency management team and the fire department, we use it daily, every day for operations. So in the event we have anything, it gives us I call it like a radar system. Gives us a good idea of collectively what's going on, not just throughout the town in emergencies, but throughout the department for daily operations.
How long have we had that?
We initially it was on a 2-year grant through the region. We started using it about 5 years ago, and we've been on our own in emergency management and the fire department, really emergency management and fire department for the last 3. And we've really started using that for the last 3 years daily, everyday operations for the fire department.
The police department uses it for their paging.
Right, that's right.
We're going to be doing it shortly for the town government.
Yep.
Paging. It's a very robust system.
So this is like a software license, basically, that we're paying the $12,000. And maintenance is included in that, if there's any maintenance?
Yep.
The software upgrade,
everything.
Software assurance. Okay. Anything else on communications? Hearing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Well done.
Well, that concludes today's presentations. We'll be back at it tomorrow at 1 o'clock, going through the afternoon with the balance of the departments. Look forward to seeing everybody who can make it back tomorrow afternoon. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
She can't.
All right, guys.
I'll move.
Yeah.